I'd like to go back to, it was almost the beginning of the briefing where there was a statement made. It said that your technology works on encrypted traffic because it's only using metadata. And I'd like to drill down on that a little bit. What metadata are you using? Is just packet headers or?
We are only using timestamps. So encryption will not prevent us to do that. And then there was another option that we could use packet length, which we didn't utilize in this study. I mean, we didn't need it, but it can be also utilized. Yeah, we are only using timestamps.
Okay. So you weren't looking at like the source and destination or anything like that, just timestamps.
I didn't get it exactly.
So since you were looking just at timestamps, then you were not looking at like the source and destination.
Oh, for the identifying the devices, we assume that the MAC addresses are also available. I mean
Okay, so timestamps and MAC address.
Yeah, exactly. Timestamp is for training. The MAC addresses is just to define the class. Yeah.
And that was sufficient in order to detect exactly what? So you had your accuracy measurements, and what was it the accuracy of detecting?
The accuracy of detecting is which device, for example, is doing any malicious mining operation on the network.
So presence of active
mining,
on a device, on a network, based on looking at the packets and their timestamps alone.
Yes.
And then the companion with that question would be, where were you doing the monitoring? So I'm thinking in terms of like a smart home. Were you assuming you had a monitor inside the home network, or was it outside between the house and the ISP?
So we need the MAC addresses basically. So that's why we're assuming that it has to be inside the network. Yeah.
Okay. That was one of my questions as well. Any questions here in the room? I don't see anybody at the mic yet, but looks like Isaiah's heading to the mic.
Hi. Sorry, I was looking at your GitHub and I wasn't fast enough. So I'll just ask in person. For the unbalanced tests, what exactly was the data imbalance between the benign samples and the malicious samples?
So the data sets we have, like we wanted to create at the beginning when we're designing the training data set and to train the model, we use the balanced data sets. Basically, it depends on the activity that we are performing in the smart home, and we could have a chance to create we have the multiple activity that is performed, and we could have a chance to create the balanced data set, and then we created that for the designing or finding the optimum detection algorithm. After that, we wanted to create more realistic scenarios in which, for example, you have the benign and the malicious data from the one device, and you wanted to see if the incoming network traffic is malicious or benign, for example. For those, for example, we use I can show here. This, for example, in scenario 8, you can see the same device scenarios, the server versus server. It means that the training is used to server data, both malicious and benign, and then but the malicious is generating much less traffic. So here you can see in the data set, let me give one example. Yeah. And for example, here, if we look at the server devices under just Raspberry Pi 4, and they're generating on average a packet per second is around 0.8. I don't know if I can show it. 0.8 or 0.9. However, when we go to the benign datasets, the same servers in general, packet per second is even for the idle traffic, it's 11, and when you go to the interactive or web browsing, is 114 or 50. So in general, the benign dataset is giving much more traffic, so which creates the imbalanced dataset.
Thanks.
No problem.
I had one more question.
Yeah, sure.
How would this, if I was like legitimately mining cryptocurrency on my machine, would it pick up that as malicious activity?
No, actually, that's a very good question. That's the between the crypto mining and cryptojacking. Crypto mining is we are referring to a legitimate mining. You can actually perform mining. It's like completely legal, and you can perform cryptojacking attack. There's no way to differentiate that other than the intention, and you have the consent and knowledge of your mining. So as long as you have the consent and knowledge, that's legal. If you don't have the consent and knowledge, that's not, I think. There's no way technically to differentiate them in the network level.
Okay, so they would appear the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually,
So you would detect it.
no, we wouldn't. There's no way to detect it. That's what I mean. Not.
But if they look the same, what am I missing?
It's the standardized crypto mining, what they're doing.
Right.
So when it's doing the mining, the only difference is the intention, like the consent.
Right.
Of,
So if the intention's the only difference, then I would think they would be indistinguishable.
yeah, they're indistinguishable.
Right. So you would detect both of them, and you just would
Oh, well, you mean
whether it was
yeah. I mean, we could detect both of them. Yeah.
Right.
That's
right. So the control traffic, for example, from the botnet and things like that, don't make the cryptojacking stand out from legitimate mining.
no, they don't. I mean, there in general, as I give the examples, there is existing like a networks that botnets have control on already, and they're just deploying the malware right now to, for example, right now because the IoT is
So there's no control traffic inside. It's just deploying the malware.
yeah, we have no control traffic.
So I think it's great that you made your data and code available. Thank you very much. Folks should see now from the keynote presentation how or why Laura and I have been asking about that throughout the day. We're trying to encourage it as much as possible if and when it makes sense. I think it's also good that you didn't share the malware that you created, though I was curious. You had to generate your own malware as opposed to using available malware?
Yeah, like that was a challenging part. There's not actually currently available like specifically on a smart TV, there's no malware. And then we needed to implement it for both in-browser and the host-based malware. And for in-browser, you basically create the website, the compromised website, and then when you access to that website from the device, that's actually performing the mining operation. On the other hand, the host base was actually more challenging because the malware needs to be installed on the device, and then the mining operation is going to be performed. And it was difficult to deploy the binary itself in the smart TV. For that, we implemented a IPTV application, and then we run the malware using that.
So clearly there's bad guys out there who are conducting crypto mining through these botnets on home devices. You didn't have access to any of that or want to try any of that. And what are the chances that the detection accuracy on that would be different than the detection accuracy on your malware? So in the wild versus, in generated yourself in the lab.
So considering this exploitation in the wild is what could be different. I mean, in general, the mining binaries are like originated from a single source because these mining operations are pretty standardized and they have one binary. If the attacker get the binary from there, the only thing that changes is a one line that where the reward goes, which address it goes. So I'm guessing we could be still as accurate as we have in the normal one, the in our controlled the setup.
So I guess part of the question I'm asking is why not use that, or were there any restrictions or limitations on using malware from the wild? It would have saved you all the trouble of going through the challenges of implementing on the LG TV, for example.
My point is it wouldn't be different. Like it would be same because running as the other question, running your own mining or running a malware is almost the same thing. The difference is
almost the same processes at both features. when you call these libraries, they always use the same calls, and we want to have those more involved environment. Observe the behavior to like. Okay, so we wanted to have a more control on the environment and observe the behavior. That's also one of the reasons.
Yeah.
And also practically the implementations, we looked at these codes as well, and they always call the same library or this in the same way, you know, the behavior of the code, like the code itself is all similar. I think what he's trying to say is that is you know, basically it wouldn't be differing much.
Okay.
So I had another question, but it's kind of off the wall. So, you know, you're taking a machine learning approach to this, and there's all this research out there about adversarial machine learning. Have you considered if and how your approach might be subject to adversarial attacks?
That's a great comment, but we haven't considered adversarial machine learning in this study.
Plus, the study emerging that really had
I can't hear.
Well, he was just asking, he said only if it was really an emerging problem or risk.
Yeah. And exactly. So this is really, yeah, it's a great comment. And also, this is an emerging, really, a problem. And it's subtle that how it is happening. And it's already impacted so many servers or so many institutions. You know, so we haven't thought of that, but this is really something that's emerging yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason I bring it up is that, I mean, it's actually been around for quite a few years now. There's been a lot of research on it. And so, you know, my only concern is, you know, we're developing a lot of solutions based on machine learning, and now we're finding that they're subject to being tricked, basically, and also leaking information and all kinds of different attacks. So,
yes, definitely adversarial machine has been around. We are aware of that. There is no question about it. What we are saying is that this is novel and emerging problem, you know, it by itself, that we wanted to shed light on. Does it make sense?
yeah, no, I understand. I'm just voicing a concern in general about basing solutions on things that are vulnerable. But, you know, it's going to take a fair amount of research in the machine learning community to come up with new ways, you know, to do things that don't have the same vulnerabilities.
Yeah, it's just making more of an observation about the machine learning field than your specific work.
I mean, this is not something that it impacts just you.